$4,750. That's what one owner was quoted to fix a head gasket on a 2011 Prius with about 180,000 miles on it, and they wrote that the number was a genuine shock. Now hold that against this. RepairPal puts the average repair cost across all cars at $650 a year. The Prius is routinely called the cheapest car in America to keep running. Both of those things are true at the same time. That's the whole video. Because cheap to maintain is an average, and an average is made of hundreds of boring oil changes, and one afternoon, that ruins your month. Every car on this list runs well under that $650 figure. Every single one also has one specific bill attached to it that most buyers never see coming. And the car at number 1 is the cheapest thing here to own over 10 years. And it's also the one holding that $4,150 quote. That's the last item, not the first, because you need the other 6 to see why that isn't a contradiction. We went through the 7 dirt cheap used cars still running at 200,000 miles recently, and this picks up right where that left off. This isn't a review, by the way. It's what happens after the review, once the press cars go back and real people start paying the bills. Number 7 is a Nissan. I know, the Sentra is one of the cheapest cars in America to put on your driveway, and CarEdge ranks it as the 18th least expensive car to maintain, with 10-year maintenance costs averaging $5,740. That's routine servicing that never really hurts. Here's the catch, and it's a big one. Several generations of Nissans have been plagued with CVT problems, particularly the Altima and Rogue, and a transmission replacement or rebuild can easily run $3,000 to $5,000, so the oil changes are cheap, and the one part that can end the car is not. Which makes the Sentra a fine buy if the CVT fluid history is documented, and it shifts cleanly on a long test drive, and a bad buy if the seller shrugs when you ask. Number 6 is the same money as a Civic, and that's the entire pitch. A Mazda 3 costs almost exactly as much to maintain as a Civic, but feels sportier and more engaging to drive, and the build quality translates into fewer premature wear issues. The catch is at the brand level. Mazda averages $462 a year, against Honda at $428 and Toyota at $441. Not a disaster, just consistently a bit more. So, if you actually enjoy driving, that gap is the cheapest fun on the list. Okay, let me annoy some people. You're going to tell me an electric car doesn't belong on a repair bill list. Fair. Then explain the Chevrolet Bolt. No oil changes, no timing components, no exhaust, no transmission in the way you mean it. Routine maintenance costs are genuinely low, and now the part that gets skipped in every EV video. The battery replacement risk outside warranty is real and should be factored into a 5-year projection. That's not a scare story, it's arithmetic. A car with almost no small bills and one enormous possible bill is a completely different financial animal from a car with lots of small ones. So, the Bolt is the cheapest thing here to run day to day, and the only one where I'd want the remaining battery coverage in writing before anything else. Which is a whole other video, and it's 7 things to check before buying a used car in the USA, 15,000 miles a year. That's the number where number 4 starts making sense. The Camry Hybrid is the sleeper pick for high-mileage drivers. The higher sticker price pays back at 15,000 plus miles annually through reduced fuel and brake costs. Brakes are the underrated half of that. On hybrids, regenerative braking does most of the work, and pads regularly last 80,000 to 100,000 miles. If you're crawling through Atlanta or the DC corridor twice a day, that's 2 or 3 brake jobs you simply never buy. The catch is the front end of the deal. You pay more to get in, and if you only drive 6,000 miles a year, you never earn it back. So, high miles, yes. Low miles, buy the regular Camry and keep the difference. Now, an owner. There's somebody posting in a CRV forum running the same 1.5-liter turbo engine you'll find in a lot of Civics. Their list. In order, infotainment system replaced, then fuel injectors, then a head gasket. They said outright they were getting rid of it before the extended warranty expired, and that they were done with that engine. That's not one bad week. That's somebody's opinion of a car changing over about 2 years, and you can hear it happening in the post. So let's talk about the Civic, because on paper, it's one of the 2 cheapest cars in America to own. Recent Civics average around $368 a year in repairs, near the top of the compact class, and owners typically deal with fewer serious problems over the car's life. The catch is one engine and one climate. Honda's 1.5-liter turbo has a known cold climate failure mode. Fuel slips past the piston rings during short cold trips and dilutes the engine oil. Owners report a fuel smell from the dipstick, a rising oil level, hard starts, and check engine lights. Honda extended powertrain coverage to 6 years with no mileage cap on certain 2016 to 2018 Civics and 2017 to 2018 CRVs, and pushed software updates to 143,000 Civics and 239,000 CRVs so the engine warms up faster. A national class action ended in a settlement that extended the warranty further and reimbursed owners for some past repairs. Read the geography in that. Honda's own position was that abnormal dilution is extremely rare, especially outside extremely cold weather areas. If you're in Minnesota doing 4-mile trips in February, that's your car. If you're in Sacramento doing 40 miles of freeway, it mostly isn't. So, the Civic earns its place. But in a cold state, pull the dipstick and smell it before you talk about price. If that one landed for you, that's the whole point of this channel. I read the forums, the bulletins, and the settlement paperwork, so you don't have to. A few of these a week before you sign anything. Number 2, a driveway, a bucket, an oil filter, and a socket set, and you're done for the year. The 2021 Toyota Corolla costs an average of $362 a year to maintain, according to RepairPal, 99 cents a day. RepairPal rates it 4.5 out of 5, first among 36 compact cars, and CarEdge puts 10 years of maintenance and repairs at roughly $4,008. There's nothing exotic under the hood to break. A 2.0-liter 4 and a calm CVT. And that's really what you're buying. Decades of predictable engineering. Every catch I can find is small. The 11th generation ran from 2014 to 2019 and is the one to have, with 2014 itself flagged as the most problematic year. And even that comes down to a few minor electrical issues. Later cars in that generation are better again. I'll be straight with you. I went looking for a real horror story on this generation and couldn't find one. That's unusual, and it's worth saying plainly, rather than manufacturing a problem to look balanced. So, if you want the boring answer, this is it. And the boring answer is boring for a reason. Number 1 has a reputation for one catastrophic bill. The reputation is completely accurate and also backwards. CarEdge puts the Toyota Prius at the least expensive car model in America for maintenance and repair, with a 10-year total of about $4,008. It earns that despite being a hybrid, because the system has decades of real-world validation behind it, and the brakes barely wear. And then there's the head gasket. On the third-generation cars, roughly 2010 to 2015, a clogged EGR system builds heat and contributes directly to head gasket failure, with 2011 to 2013 seeing the highest incidence. Toyota revised the EGR design on later models, which reduced the problem. Owners recommend cleaning the EGR cooler and intake manifold every 50,000 to 100,000 miles, and a replacement gasket job starts around $3,000 because the cylinder head has to come off, more if parts go to a machine shop. That's where the $4,750 quote at 180,000 miles came from. Here's the part almost nobody says out loud. A preventative EGR valve. Cooler and intake clean runs roughly $450 to $600 at a shop, and parts alone for somebody doing it themselves land somewhere around $150 to $450. And if the carbon is still there after a gasket replacement, the new gasket fails too. Which is why the EGR cleaning has to be part of the repair, and why some owners pay twice. Conditions matter here as much as anywhere on this list. In desert heat, where summer already pushes a hybrid cooling system, this shows up harder. And short trip city driving makes it worse because the engine never fully warms and the carbon builds quietly until the cold start rattle appears. So, the Prius is genuinely the cheapest car on this list to keep, provided somebody spent $600 at the right time instead of $4,000 at the wrong one. Here's my call, and it's only my call, on a Gen 3 Prius. I'd want the EGR service documented before I'd want anything else on the Carfax, and I'd rather buy a 2014 or 2015 than a 2012. You might read the same numbers and go hunting for a cheap 2012 to do the work yourself, and that's a perfectly sane plan. You know your garage, I don't. As of August 2026, that's where the numbers stand, and with parts prices, things move. What did your last big repair actually cost? And was it the dealer or an independent shop? If you own any of these, what state are you in? Cold states and desert states are basically different cars. And if you sold one because of one specific bill, I especially want to hear which one. Next one is 5 used SUVs that quietly cost a fortune to keep, because it's the exact mirror image of this list, and the numbers are genuinely uglier than people expect. That's the picture as it stands. Whatever you land on, buy it with your eyes open. See you on the next one.